Hey, good morning. I think we're live. I think we're up and running here. Just give me a second here to make sure we're all good. If you guys could just let me know in the chat if you can hear me. I don't know which part has no sound. Do I not have sound? That would really suck because that's what happens on these days. Trying to get everything up today, so it could be just a brief moment before we get everything working. Everything selected. Everything should be good. Okay. Yeah, it just had to probably get through that little phase there. So, is it too loud? I just want to make sure we're not too loud. No sound on the intro. That's interesting. Well, Streamlabs, man, I tell you what. They are on my shit list, if you will. So let's get it rolling. It's kind of a tough day for me. We did end up having to lay Honey to rest yesterday. But she is not in any more pain. So at least we feel better about that. And we're going to do our best today to kind of get through this. So good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Rise and Grind Morning Show. It is Thursday, June 20th, 2024, 8:12 a.m. And we've got 5 topics this morning. So as we get rolling, hopefully tomorrow things will smooth out a little bit. I put a lot of work into the back end of this. As you can see, we've got the background working. We got the first topic already up on screen. Decker speaks out on Dan Campbell. So let me get my notes up and we'll get rolling here. All right. So maybe some of you have already seen this, but I wanted to talk about it today because we posted this, one of the speeches during Hard Knocks on the Rocked On Detroit Lions Facebook page. And it got a ton of reach, a ton of people engaged with it because Dan Campbell is such an impactful coach, a leader of men and women. But he's doing an incredible job in what he spoke to day one press conference has all reigned true. All of it. Everybody thought he was a meathead. They didn't think he was intelligent. They didn't think that he was going to last. He thought, he thought that he knew what he wanted, and he knew what he wanted to do, and he had a plan, right? They always talk about the plan, trust in the process, and to just give them some time. And, of course, as many Lions fans have been known to do, we don't give anybody time. And it was quick. I mean, into, a year and a half of the new coaching staff and new rosters and a draft strategy that nobody understood, or at least some didn't understand. I would say many, overwhelming majority, didn't understand what was going on in Detroit. But if you go back to the introductory press conference, everything that Dan Campbell said has come true. Everything that he said that he wanted to do is what this team is doing. He had to get through that first roster. They improved year 2. They improved again in year 3. And ended up going to the NFC Championship game, which, again, nobody on this green earth expected to happen, at least not that soon. I always said it would be a 4-year turnaround for them to even have a shot at a Super Bowl, and that's where we're sitting now. But I want to touch on what Taylor Decker said. It's been over 3 years since the Detroit Lions, head coach famously vowed during his introductory news conference that this team, this organization, was going to bite a kneecap off. And I think that's exactly what they've done. And not just once, but many times, man. They get up every single time after a loss and get out there and do the unthinkable. Last season, the Detroit Lions never lost more than 1 game in a row. And I think that's a big credit to what Dan Campbell has preached and instilled in this team. So Taylor Decker, I'm not sure where this quote came from, but this is from USA Today Network, and I know that's not exactly where this quote came from. But he was given a question about Dan Campbell to rethink on what did you think about Dan Campbell the day that, he had that introductory press conference today, looking back then, and what does it mean to you today? And this is what he said. He said, I love the speech. And this was by ESPN's Eric Woodyard, is where the quote came from. He says, I thought it was great because he was wearing his heart on his sleeve and he was speaking, especially in hindsight. Knowing what I know now, those were like core beliefs to him. Those were things that he truly and deeply believed in and wanted to do. And again, in hindsight, seeing that vision come to fruition is pretty cool, especially because I'm sure there were a lot of people that were like, that's not the coach we wanted. I don't know about you guys, but when I heard that speech, man, I wanted to run through a brick wall. It's something I've never heard before from a coach. You get coach speak, right? Well, we're going to do X's and O's and we're going to do this and we're going to improve upon the roster and we've got to compete and blah. You know what I mean? It's robotic. Dan Campbell's anything but robotic. He does his business the way that he knows how to get it done. And that's with truth and honesty and transparency, exactly the same way we try to do things here. Decker has played only for the Lions since he entered the league. He's been the longest tenured Lion other than, I think, Dan Skipper, who I think has been around a little bit longer, but I could be wrong on that. Decker has more than 10 seasons as a Detroit Lion. First entered the league in 2016, first-round draft pick. He was part of the 2021 squad that finished Campbell's first season with a 3-13-1 record, which, again, when you go back and look at that press conference and then look at the record, you're like, what the F? Like, I thought we were going to bite some kneecaps off. But that's how impatient we are as Lions fans, because we've been so patient for so many decades, just waiting for something to change. And it finally did. Detroit later offered a preview of what was to come when it posted an 8-2 record after Halloween of the 2022 campaign, finishing 9-8, knocking the Packers out of the playoffs. Even though the Lions didn't have anything to play for in that last game of the season, they went all grit all night in Lambeau and knocked the Packers out and kicked Aaron Rodgers out of the NFC North. Decker followed that up with this. He said, that made us feel like we were getting closer, talking about the 9-8 season. So it was turning from let's go out here and compete really hard to let's try to start optimizing this thing and get those 3 to 4 plays that can make a big difference and really zero in on the details. I think that the team bringing in players where they didn't have to coach effort was huge for us to be able to do that so quickly. So when you look at the plan, right, trust in the process, what is Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes really trying to tell us through their way of doing things? Decker just kind of gave you the clue. Effort. If you have to coach players to give all of their effort, every single play, every single down, it's going to be harder to win. If you don't have to coach effort, which is really hard to coach, I mean, it's either you got it or you don't. It's like speed. You have it or you don't. You can't coach speed. But you can coach players how to get better with the tools that they already have in their tool belt. And effort has to be one. Being a good human has to be another. Loving football is probably the most important. And then, yes, you need to be a gifted athlete. And then allow the coaching staff to coach you. So you have to be coachable. And then in the locker room, you have to be likable. The guys have to be able to absorb you and be part of you, right? And that's what this team is all about. In September of 2023, the Lions started the season as the betting favorites to win the NFC North. By chance, just because of the roster, right? I think that's the only reason why anyone was giving us any sort of consideration. And this was ultimately, the plan here. The Lions won. We won the NFC North crown for the first time ever, and won a division for the first time in more than 30 years. Or I'm sorry, maybe it wasn't 30 years. I think it was... maybe it was. I can't remember now. Detroit claimed the division crown with a 12-5 record, ultimately squandered a 24-7 halftime lead in the NFC Championship game, losing to the 49ers 34-31. And that's where I saw Dan Campbell getting thrown under the bus again. And it's like, man, as Lions fans, can we not just give this guy a little bit of credit for what he's been able to do and the rest of the coaching staff for what they've been able to do in 3 short seasons? I mean, I think we blinked. Dan Campbell becomes the head coach. Brad Holmes becomes the GM in reverse order. We blinked and we're in the NFC Championship game. Who would have thought that that would have been possible? Very few of us. So Decker went on to say, he said, so for however well we played for 60 plays, there's like 5 or however much, I'm just throwing a number, that just didn't go our way. And those were the big difference makers. That just makes you go back in the Rolodex of what could I have done differently. As much as it hurts to look back on, and it sucks, but for us, I don't feel like it was our only shot. I don't feel that way. And as you guys remember, Dan Campbell said after the fact that was it. You know, that was the shot. That was the time to take an opportunity, and we missed, and we're not going to get back. And I think that was just his emotions coming out. And he said as much later that was just his emotions, because he understands how hard it is being a former player, longtime player in the NFL, being part of the 0-16 team in Detroit. He has so much background in history. That's why he was such a perfect selection to this team. That's what I wanted to share with you guys to get you kind of riled up this morning. I'm not going to share any clips this morning until I can get a few other things figured out. But if you go to the Rock Down Detroit Lions Facebook page, there's tons of content on it. You might have to wind back or at least check the reels, but we have the speech. And, of course, you can look it up on YouTube, too. Dan Campbell's introductory speech. I would suggest that you go back and listen to it and realize all of the things that Dan Campbell was trying to say in his own way, through his own words. And, man, he didn't lie. He sure didn't lie. He knew what needed to be done, and he's still building each and every day. All right, let's get into topic 2. Seth Walder hammers the Jared Goff contract. All right, before we get into this next segment, let me get into the chat here. Welcome everybody in, as I like to do. Good morning, Tracy. We've got Mike P, Rick, Derek W's in the house, Joseph Ostin, Uper Lights, Mile Marker 301, Lions Super Bowl 2024 morning. I like it. My Reselling Life. We got Chip Bradshaw. It's a new name. Hey, good morning, Chip. You got Brent DeWitt. Hey, it's been a minute, Brent. Nice to see you back in. King SJ's in the house all the way from Toronto. We got One Life, One Chance. Let's go Lions. Love it. Love the name, too. Who else is in here? You got Chef Talks Lions all the way from Australia. I always get confused, man. I think it's nighttime over in Australia, obviously. It's got to be late for him. We got Thomas Donner. That's a new name. Welcome in. He says Chris Spielman does not get the credit he deserves for being the route from where this entire Detroit Lions team grew. It's a good point, man. We highlighted, Chris Spielman about a week and a half ago or so in a morning show. And I'll be doing another Lions Legend tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll be doing Lions Legend Friday. Michael Garrity's in the house. I'm glad you found us, man, and you're doing such an excellent job on the Facebook page. You and Tracy and Milliken, I think is the last name. You guys are all doing an excellent job. Really fighting it out to win this first gift bag here, which ends tomorrow. So tomorrow is the day that we start to compile some information from Facebook to see who wins. Who else is in here this morning? We got Dan Perry, Tom Felrath. Good morning, says new live viewer. Enjoyed your videos. Finally lined my schedule with yours. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate you joining us this morning. Welcome to Rock Down Detroit Lions Rise and Grind Morning Show. So Seth Walder hammers the Goff contract. Now, I don't get this. I mean, are they just trying to find something to write at this point? I feel like that's it. But the Lions did not receive a favorable grade, and this was written by John Macaroon of All Lions Fan Nation, where he goes on to say that the Lions did not receive a favorable offseason grade from one writer. Now, I'm sure it wasn't just one. I'm sure there was many more, but this is one that has raised his voice and pumped out his chest a little bit to make some noise. So this article goes on to say by John Macaroon that the Detroit Lions front office has been praised by numerous analysts for their offseason decisions this spring. For one ESPN analytics writer, Jared Goff's massive contract extension sinks the Lions' offseason grade. Before I go on, well, what happened with Trevor Lawrence's contract? I mean, there is no way that he deserved that kind of money. He's done absolutely nothing. I mean, doesn't even compare to what Jared Goff has done in this league. Multiple playoff wins, Super Bowl appearance, NFC Championship appearance, a top 5 quarterback in almost every single metric that really matters. Forget the bogus PFF stuff, that they make up to drive narratives. How on earth does Trevor Lawrence get a contract like that? So I can't wait to see what Seth Walder should write about Trevor Lawrence. I'm just being honest. So only 5 teams earned a worse grade, as Detroit only earned a C from Seth Walder, where he had this to say. The most important transaction the Lions made was the 4-year, $212 million extension that they handed to Jared Goff. It's not a move I can endorse at that price, and it has the potential to hamper the organization for years. I don't know what team he's watching, because if you look around this roster, I think we're pretty solid. And not only are we solid, but you guys hear me talk about roster roulette quite a bit, right? I have to say, I mean, that's a term that I coined and I made up, and I swear to you, it looks like Brad Holmes is doing that exact thing. Now, I don't know for a fact, but if you look at when he's bringing players in through free agency, the draft, and how he's organizing these contracts, that's what it looks like to me. It's almost identical to what I have in my mind as to how it really should kind of work with an NFL team that's rebuilding, that's kind of doing it fresh, starting from the beginning. They're not just laying out a plan for year 1, but they're looking at year 10. How do we get to year 10 with money in cap space and not only that, but assets, to be able to bring players in through the draft and continually, build our guys and shape our guys, mold them, develop them. And it's exactly what he's doing, in my opinion. So we're bringing guys in that are young. We're not spending a ton of money in free agency unless it's our own guys. Jared Goff is the only free agent that has received such a large contract from the Detroit Lions. And I think next to him, you're probably looking at DJ Reader, which was a 2-year, $29 million contract. But I think, it's more like $15 million with the guarantees. So I don't think that the Lions are doing anything that is going to impact the amount of money that they have available. I think that as long as they can sign their rookies every year and have like 20, 30 million left over to kind of play with. So, right around that $40 million mark every season, I think they're going to be just fine. And I think that they've proven time and time again through all of the drafts that they've done so far that they're able to draft the guys that fit this team and are able to play day one. Walder goes on to say this. He says the most important he goes on to say this. Says Goff is a divisive talent, but I think most would agree he's not a top 10 quarterback. I don't know what most room he's sitting in, and that offensive coordinator Ben Johnson deserves a fair share of credit for Detroit's offensive success. I don't agree with that either. I mean, I think that Ben's a big part of it, but if you remember what Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell and everybody had said, they are building this offense around their quarterback. They're not building an offense and then trying to fit, a round peg into a square hole with a quarterback that they're getting off the street or a quarterback they're getting in the draft. They built this around Goff because they knew what Jared Goff does very well. They built this around having an extremely good offensive line. Jared Goff is one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL. Matter of fact, more than 80% of his throws last season were on target. There was only one other player in the league that had a better mark, and that was Dak Prescott with 83%. Is 3% going to make or break your season? Doubtful. But Goff being the second best quarterback with accuracy in the league should tell you something. And no, I don't want to hear he can't throw the long ball. That's all timing. That is continuity. That is gelling with your players. Sure, as some passes been inconsistent, yes. But I think if you go back and look at the totality of it, he's been very good. And I think if you go back and look at the reasons why some of those passes may have been not so great, maybe a little off target, because he was under pressure. And you're throwing a deep ball under pressure. Yeah, he doesn't have the strongest arm to kind of wheel out and just launch it, like a Stafford could, or heck, even Jordan Love has a pretty good arm when he rolls out. And it's not, a Josh Allen type arm or a Patrick Mahomes type arm. But if Goff can do the things that he's good at, he's one of the best in the league to do it. So I don't agree. I think that this is a 50-50 split here between Jared Goff and Ben Johnson. And Jared Goff was already playing well when Dan Campbell was calling plays. So I think that it's just been accentuated with Ben Johnson's, ingenuity with this and being creative and how to help Jared Goff, have more success within the offensive structure. But they're also bringing players in that can play well within the structure. He goes on to say this: if Johnson leaves for a head coaching job in the near future, how effective would Goff be? That's a fair question. So he says. Is it a fair question? Maybe. But I'm still going to lean on the fact that Dan Campbell was the one that started creating this offense. A lot of this started with him. If Ben Johnson leaves next season, I think that we're going to be fine. The next coach that's training with Jared Goff, and I can't remember his name right now, is going to be able to implement the same things that they're already doing. They're not going to just change everything. And if you think that Dan Campbell doesn't know this offense inside and out, you'd be wrong. And if you think that even Chris Spielman, who said this year now he studied the offensive playbook and knows what they're doing and why, you have another asset there if you needed him, which he said he's not coming after anybody's job. He loves what he does. But Chris Spielman is kind of like that, ace of hearts in the back pocket if you need him. So I don't agree with Seth Walder here. I think that this is a pretty poor take. I think that the Lions are doing everything right now. I mean, could they do some other things that maybe I would want to see? Sure. But that doesn't mean that what I want is right. I think this is another quote by Walder here where he says, what are the odds that the Lions want Goff to be their quarterback in 2027? I'm not sure that they are high. I'm not sure they are that high, and the downside is significant if the team decides to move off Goff in the next year or two, like the Rams did when they sent him to Detroit. Well, the Rams sent him to Detroit because Sean McVay failed to develop Jared Goff, right? They were just in go mode, and they didn't try to build around Goff. They were just kind of pulling and plugging pieces. Never once did they really develop Jared Goff. He went and brought him to a Super Bowl, brought him to the playoffs. It wasn't all Jared Goff's reason as to why they failed. And it wasn't all Matt Stafford's reason as to why they won the Super Bowl. They had an incredible team. And that's what Jared Goff also has. And look how well he's playing. If you want to see a great insight, Chef Talks Lions did an insight last night in his podcast talking about the development. And there was a video that came out this morning about 7 a.m. Talking about Sean McVay failing to develop Jared Goff. And I thought it was great insights. Check it out on the All Grit podcast at the All Grit Pod. Walder goes on to say this. While there probably is some value in the team demonstrating faith in its quarterback, this was an awfully expensive way to do it, particularly in terms of costing future optionality, nice word, for him. I don't agree, man. Not at all. I think that the Lions are doing just fine. I think that Jared Goff is the guy that we want behind Frank Ragnow, and I wouldn't want any other quarterback heading into 2024. And for simple fact, that there's been a lot of talk in this offseason about Hendon Hooker being, the guy and the future guy, and he may be a future guy. It could be 3-4 years down the line. But as we've seen, a lot of people got their hopes up about Hendon Hooker, and he's had a lot of trouble this offseason just being accurate, where Goff doesn't have that trouble. So sometimes what we want is not the right thing for the team. And I'm not throwing shade at anybody that wanted Hendon Hooker, because I wanted him to be drafted by the Lions. I was pretty clear about that prior to the draft last year. It's just sometimes what we see is not really what's happening. Sometimes the things that we read is not really the truth. And I think that we leave it up to the guys that are doing a phenomenal job right now, which is Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes and the rest of the staff, for putting an excellent team together. So much so that even the Pack podcast, which I happened to catch this morning while I was assembling some things, I think it's called the One Pack podcast or the Pack podcasting. I don't know what it's called, but anyway, just happened to hear it, and they even have the Lions as favorites this year to win the NFC North, which I found a little inspiring. So, all right, let me get into the chat here. What do you guys have to say about Jared Goff, Seth Wilder throwing Jared Goff's contract under the bus? What do we got in here? Rick says, if you say Goff is not a top 10 QB, you should probably watch some football. Joseph Ostin says, accuracy is the first trait. Chip Bradshaw says, this is the first time I've seen great personnel from ownership to kicker. We got some information on kicker today, too. Best overall Lions organization from top to bottom. Chef Talks Lions says, I don't know what these guys are talking about with money. It's like they don't know about salary caps and how contracts are structured. Only clueless franchises cripple themselves with contracts. Great point, man. And have we seen the Lions do that yet? I mean, are we expecting them to do that ever? I don't see it. I think that they're too smart. They have learned from every GM before them, that has come into the Detroit Lions front office and said, that's exactly what we're not going to do. As long as we don't do that, I think that we'd be pretty good. The Quintricia era was much worse than we really think. And having that back-to-back, with Matt Millen, and what was the other gentleman's name? I can't remember his name right now. But, it starts with an M. Martin Mayhew. They really crippled this team. That's what crippling a team looks like. What Brad Holmes is doing, with Mike Disner and Rod Wood and Brad Holmes, and Dan Campbell and Sheelaham, that is not crippling the team. It's anything but crippling the team. So, thanks, Chef Talks Lines. It came. It just took a second. Thomas Donner says, Hendon's going to take a while. He's a very talented player, but people need to lay off him even this year. Yeah, he just needs time. That's a great point. He just needs time. He needs to acclimate. I mean, let's be serious here. The guy's just coming off of an ACL. It usually takes 2 seasons to kind of feel a ton better and feel more confident. I think he's feeling confident right now. I think he's having fun. He just has a lot to learn. He came out of a funky offense. But on Jared Goff's contract, look, was it a lot of money? Sure. But as Dan Campbell has always told us, it is much easier to get worse at quarterback than it is to get, better. And I think that that's a very fair point. Tell me 10 other quarterbacks that we could have actually had, that we could have signed, one for less money, that you would have wanted on this team. Because I'll tell you right now, out of the top 15 quarterbacks in the league, they're either locked up or they ain't going anywhere, or they would have wanted the same amount of money. I mean, I've heard rumors right now that Jordan Love is about ready to sign a contract that could pale in comparison to Jared Goff and be like the second or third highest, paid quarterback in the league. Just a rumor. But if that were to happen, I mean, I think that tells you how wildly out of control contracts are becoming. And I will say that. I do believe that the contracts are getting a little bit out of control. And I do believe that the NFL ownership, all 32 teams and Roger Goodell, are probably going to do something. Just like they did with the running backs, there's probably going to be a little collusion here where they're going to come together and say, nah, we're just not going to pay them. And no matter what team they go looking for, just do us the favor and don't sign them. And we're going to drive these prices back down. I don't agree with it. I mean, I do think the contracts are pretty high, pretty steep compared to what the overall number is for these teams is, as far as cap space. That I could agree with. It's just not to the point yet right now where it's going to cripple a team unless you're doing other things to add to that, like signing, a bunch of expensive, defensive linemen or cornerbacks or receivers or multiple of them, and you're not developing behind them. And the Lions are developing. That is their number one thing that they do and do well is development. Draft and develop. Draft and develop. That's their goal, at least from what I see. I don't know that firsthand. I haven't had a conversation with Brad Holmes, but at least that's what I see. So Rick says Brad Holmes locked up Goff 1 year before a quarterback market explosion. It crosses $60 million annual average next offseason. Dude, we might even see that this year. Dak Prescott, he was pushing for a $60 million contract. Matter of fact, I think he's getting paid $60 million this year. All right, let's get on to topic number 3 here. Okay. I was talking about kickers a second ago, and this popped up. Now, I didn't realize that the Packers are just trying to be a thorn in our side. I mean, we've been a thorn in their side, right? We've snagged some players from them. Terry and Arnold this year, there was speculation that the Packers were trying to get him, and Brian Branch last year. So we've done everything that we possibly can to stay in front of the Packers. And even this year, they were trying to get Jake Bates. Lions snagged him. But Green Bay reportedly is eyeing James Turner. So did the Lions gift a player to the Packers roster? Maybe. Haven't seen anything develop yet, but there is some talk that the Green Bay Packers aren't afraid of creating more competition on their roster. LaFleur and company wanted to field the best 53-man roster. I mean, just like anybody else. That just one season after moving on from Aaron Rodgers, that the Packers might find themselves in a position to actually compete for a championship. That I don't agree with. I think that they have a pretty far way to go. And this is an article by McQuaid Arnold. He's a Packers writer. And he goes on to say that expectations are already skyrocketing for this young Packers team. I will tell you by the podcast that I listened to this morning from the Packers, he feels anything but. He doesn't feel like the Packers are really in a position to do much this season. And I would agree. I mean, I think that they're still a young, growing team. The Jordan Love has a lot more to prove than just 8 games. But to live up to these expectations and obviously to add talent to the roster, the Packers have not been shy about adding competition for kicker. And this offseason, after rookie Anders Carlson struggled in 2023, Jake Bates would have been an excellent addition to compete with Carlson, Greg Joseph, and Jack Polonesti. I think that's how you say his last name. However, with the Lions snaking Jake Bates and releasing James Turner, there might be another kicker that the Packers might bring in for camp competition. So Detroit obviously announced on Tuesday that they were signing Jake Bates and waived James Turner last week with the Jake Bates, this past week with James Turner. Turner reportedly showcased a very strong leg, which he did this offseason with Lions OTAs and minicamps. The Packers could use him, and to find out that they might take him or sign him this week is still being talked about. Turner signed with the Lions this spring after wrapping up his collegiate career at the University of Michigan. Last season with the Wolverines, he made 98.6% of his extra points. So he only missed one, 65 of 66, and an 85.7% field goal rate, 18 of 21. A large majority of his kicks, obviously, under 50 yards. So that's the topic of, conversation here on kickers. And did the Lions potentially gift the Packers another player, right? I mean, hey, at least it wasn't Terry and Arnold or Brian Branch, right? I mean, a kicker's a kicker's a kicker. We just expect the kicker's going to make it. I think that's the end of the day on that one. So we'll move on to topic number 4. All right, so Detroit Lions quarterback of the past. Did the Lions screw up by cutting a quarterback? And we're talking about none other than Adrien Martinez. Former Detroit Lions quarterback capped off an exceptional UFL season with a championship MVP. And this article is coming by Mike Moratis. I found this really interesting. I kind of forgot about Adrien Martinez. Even though I was watching the UFL this year, I didn't even realize he was playing for the Stallions. I don't know why, but it has been quite a year for him. He had an excellent season. He was easily one of the biggest standouts in the UFL in 2024 after an impressive season with the Birmingham Stallions. Not only did the Stallions win the UFL championship game on Sunday over the San Antonio Brahmas, they won 25-0. Martinez was also named the game's MVP. That honor comes on the heels of Martinez also winning the league's MVP award, along with being named the All-UFL team. In the championship game, Martinez scored a total of 3 touchdowns, including 2 on the ground and 1 through the air. He also threw for 98 yards and ran for another 52. Kind of a bleak game, statistically, but they did what they had to do to win the game. During the regular season, Martinez ranked second in total offense, 2,277 yards, finished with 18 total touchdowns, 15 passing, 3 on the ground, tied for the most in the UFL. His 4 touchdown passes in Week 6 and 5 total touchdowns in Week 8 are both league records. He was the only UFL quarterback to record 2 300-yard passing games, with his 369-yard game showing to be the best or highest mark in the league. So my question to you is, did the Lions screw up? You know, should they have kept Martinez around? Was there even room for him? Should he be brought back on the roster and Nate Sudfeld released? I don't know. This is taking, I guess a turn, if you will, for Martinez, where maybe he'll get a look from some NFL teams again. The only thing I can say about Nate Sudfeld is he's a pretty intelligent dude. Maybe not, the best option as a backup. Obviously, that position is going to be held for, Hendon Hooker, assuming that he can kind of, get it together in training camp. But Martinez clearly has shown, even last season, during preseason and training camp, that he has the ability to play the game. It's just at what rate, what ceiling does he have? The fact that he played this well in the UFL, I guess I'm not surprised. I mean, he was a pretty standout player in college, pretty good career in college at Kansas State. I don't know. I don't know if the Lions really screwed up here. I mean, obviously they brought in Hendon Hooker for a reason, but Martinez over Sudfeld, I kind of like it. I think that Martinez offers us, more opportunity as far as, his movement ability, giving the look team a different look, providing more of that, run and gun kind of quarterback, someone that is a dual threat, which Hendon Hooker is supposed to be too. But Hooker can also sling the ball once he learns how to get more accurate and develop his timing. So I don't know if the Lions really screwed up here. I do like the fact that Martinez had a great season. I think it just shows that the Lions find great players. They can't keep them all, but there's a reason why they brought Martinez is. They clearly seen something in him that the other teams didn't, and they brought him in right away as a UDFA, and now he's won a championship with the UFL. So clearly there's a reason here, and I think that the biggest takeaway from this is maybe the Lions didn't screw up in releasing him, but just look how good they are at bringing guys in. Their scout team is unbelievable. What these guys are doing behind the scenes, getting looks at all of these guys, they're doing it right. And I don't think it's marked, just by their statistics and their statistical output every year, and it's catching the eye, of scouts. I mean, they're doing a really good job of getting in and taking a look at these guys, from all aspects of the game. And I think that speaks more volumes to just how good the Detroit Lions are from top to bottom. So doing a great job here. Did the Lions screw up? I don't think so. I think that they made a great decision on bringing Martinez in, and maybe there just wasn't enough room for him, obviously, to make the roster last year. Couldn't hold on to him. So let me see what you guys have to say here about the last 2 topics. What was Adrien Martinez completion percentage for the season? I could find that out, potentially. UFL statistics are not always the easiest. Let's take a look here. According to Fox Sports, Martinez was only 58.5. So he threw 229 attempts, completed 134. Played in all 10 games, started 7. Threw for, well, this has to be old. Hold on here. This doesn't include the postseason. Postseason, he was 54.8%. So not the greatest of percentage. So my question is, this offense. And it looks like they got Matt Corral on the team too. Is that what I'm seeing here? They do. They have Matt Corral on. I mean, that's a pretty good quarterback room. And they also have Jamar Smith. I don't know much about Jamar Smith. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty low percentage, right? According to Matt, in competition with Matt Corral's chucking the ball 81.8%. I think Jared Goff hovers in that 67-68% range, if memory serves me right. So pretty low percentage. But in the UFL, I think that they do things a little bit differently too. I mean, obviously, he's running the ball a lot more and not having to pass the ball as often. And that team ran the ball a ton last year for how many plays, obviously they put out. So good question, Rick. Clearly, you're seeing some things that the Lions possibly saw. Maybe his completion percentage was just not good enough, during his time as a Detroit Lion. Definitely would be a career backup, according to Thomas Donner here in the chat. It says, look at Martinez in his history of playing ball. He is a career backup if he makes an NFL roster. I think it's a great point. And I think that's the point that I'm trying to make today, too, is, he is a backup. Obviously, he's not going to compete with Jared Goff. There's just no way there. But I'm looking for, quarterback 2 and 3 for the Lions, potentially 3, someone to sit on the practice squad. Looks like that player is going to be Nate Sudfeld, assuming Hendon Hooker is going to be able to beat out Nate Sudfeld in summer training camp. That's what we're hoping for. But really what Jared Goff needs is that quarterback on the sideline that can be his other eyes, and help him identify things that are going on. That's what is really important, with your backup quarterback. And that's why Nate Sudfeld has stuck around for so long, is because he's been so good with Jared Goff and working together with Jared Goff and being that second set of eyes. Fifth topic coming up. Will the NFL file bankruptcy? All right, so topic 5, last topic of the day. Will the NFL have to file bankruptcy? So if any of you guys have been paying attention to what's been going on with the NFL Sunday Ticket, look, this has been a complete mess with what's going on here. Now, I can't say that I've paid extreme close attention to this, but I caught this article talking about the judge overseeing the NFL Sunday Ticket trial voices his frustrations over the case. And when I got to reading this, and in class action lawsuits, obviously they are pretty broad scope lawsuits. And what's happening here is this judge is not happy. He's not happy at all with how the NFL or the plaintiffs have really, done this class action lawsuit and how it's affected the trial so far. So I'm going to read this article. But the reason why I'm saying is the NFL going to have to file bankruptcy is because the amount of damages that could potentially be awarded from this case could exceed $21 billion. And I don't think that the NFL is going to just hand out $21 billion unless they got some 100-year payment plan, which I don't think is going to happen. So most cases, large class action lawsuits like this, they file bankruptcy and then they go into asset protection. So Los Angeles Associated Press says the federal judge presiding over the class action lawsuit filed by the Sunday Ticket subscribers against the NFL voiced her frustrations on Tuesday with the way that the plaintiffs' attorneys have handled their side of the case. Before Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones took the stand, and I really want to see that, and I want to see Roger Goodell's, took the stand on Tuesday for a second day of testimony, U.S. District Judge Philip Gutierrez said the premise of the case was simple. Who wouldn't see the frustration of a Seattle Seahawks fan living in Los Angeles, not being able to see their favorite team without buying a subscription for all the Sunday afternoon out-of-market games? The way you have tried this case, this is a quote from the judge, the way you have tried this case is far from simple. This case has turned into 25 hours of depositions and gobbledygook. This case has gone in a direction it shouldn't have gone. The class action, end quote. The class action which covers 2.4 million residential subscribers and 48,000 businesses who paid for the package of out-of-market games from 2011 through 2022, claims the league broke their antitrust laws by selling its package of Sunday games, aired on CBS and Fox, at an inflated price. The subscribers also say the league restricted competition by offering the Sunday ticket only on a satellite provider. Which, I've tried to purchase this in the past, and I always wondered why I couldn't. I don't have satellite. I think that they made some changes to that last year, and that might be because of what was coming down the pike. I'm not real sure. The NFL maintains it has the right to sell Sunday ticket under its antitrust exemption for broadcasting, but the plaintiffs say that only covers over-the-air broadcast and not pay-per-TV. This is where it got crazy. If the NFL is found liable, a jury could award $7 billion in damages, but that number could balloon to $21 billion because in antitrust cases, they can triple the damages. That's nuts to me. There was another quote in here, but it goes on to say, Tuesday was not the first time Gutierrez has expressed his frustration, the judge, with the plaintiff's side. On Monday, he admonished their attorneys for repeatedly describing past testimony, which he considered a waste of time. Before Jones resumed his testimony, Gutierrez expressed doubts about plaintiff's attorneys, citing Jerry Jones' lawsuit against the NFL in 1995, which challenged the league's licensing and sponsorship procedures. The judge said, "I don't know what you are doing, but marketing is not media." Later in his testimony, Jones said he sued the NFL because the league sued him. Both sides eventually settled out of court. I had no idea that happened. I guess I'm not surprised, though. Look, the reason why I'm bringing this up today is because if you are a subscriber, if you are an out-of-state, subscriber to Lions football, and you purchase the Sunday ticket, this obviously impacts you. I have no idea what's going to happen here. I do think it's kind of crazy. I guess I never thought, that there could have ever been anything wrong. I mean, of course, I thought the price was nuts. And quite honestly, any time that I've ever used any sort of a package, whether the NFL, package, I think it's like $99 a year for NFL Plus, you still can't see the games. It's like the majority of them aren't live. And I don't understand this at all. I mean, why is the NFL just not making all of the games available? If you purchase a subscription like NFL Plus, it should be available. Why do I have to buy NFL Plus and Sunday ticket? And then even then on Sunday ticket, you're still not going to get all the games. You'll get replays. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm curious what you guys have to say about this. Are you a subscriber to the Sunday ticket? And has it impacted your viewership of watching the Detroit Lions? I'm not saying that you guys are going to get paid out of this, but if you're a subscriber, you're involved. You're involved in this case. Thankfully, I'm not. I just think that a lot of this stuff is crazy. And I really think that, the amount of money that these damages can see. I mean, what ends up happening? Every subscriber gets $20 in the mail. It just seems like a lot of wasted money and time and taxpayer dollars, and it just goes nowhere. And you see that with all these lawsuits that happen everywhere. Like, where does the money go? I mean, you see that these people get sued for hundreds of millions of dollars, and nobody benefits from it. The public certainly doesn't. So I don't understand it. I really don't. But it was insightful, at least, to share and maybe put this out in the forefront. And maybe Mike Florio has some commentary on this. He is a former attorney. I don't think he's in practice for like 15 years, but he might have some commentary on his show about this. What's the end goal? Are you just trying to drive the price down? Are you trying to make the NFL more available? Which I'm all for that. I mean, I think that people should have more availability to be able to watch their team. I've never understood blackouts. It has never made any sense to me. I think that, if the game is being aired on the channel, it should be aired everywhere, at least in your market. So I don't know. Interesting stuff here. Just yeah, I know Florio's terrible. I know, but he actually does have some good insight about legal stuff that has happened. That's the one thing that I do listen to with him every once in a while. Dave Barnett has a comment here. He says, I love that we locked up our 3 pillars this offseason. If we keep paying top NFL prices, how many more pillars can we employ? McNeil, Hutch, Ragnow, Deck, JMO, 2023, 4 rookies, etc. I guess that's the bigger question. How much of this money goes to the teams? And speaking of money, I want to say, was it 2023 or 2022? I think that after the NFL broke down their profit and loss margins, right, that each team received about $375 million in gross profits, which I don't think had anything to do with ticket sales, but that was like their marketing plan through all of the different cable networks. I assume that the Sunday NFL ticket was involved in that number. It's a ton of money. $375 million going to 32 because it gets split up equally. It does not matter how much your team is worth. And I think the number is 375. It could have been 372. Let me do the math here. That's $12 billion that the NFL profited in a recent season, 2022, 2023. So how much is too much? How much money, do these teams and this organization really need to make? And if you're profiting that much money, why is the salary cap so low? Why are the guys at the bottom of the roster making less than $1 million? Why are they not getting bigger guarantees? And I'm not trying to start anything here, but I think that, after reading the other day that one of our kickers had a $2,500 guarantee, it just kind of irked me a little bit. Like, these guys work too hard. And they've been working their whole life. It's not like they just started working when they, were drafted or, contracted through an NFL team. They've been working their whole life to get here. And I think that that's worth something. Yes, some players are going to get paid through NIL before they make, the NFL, but the majority don't. And I think that there needs to be some set of a minimum just for, being drafted or being a UDFA and getting signed. There has to be a minimum guarantee, I guess, is where I'm going with this, especially when you look at how much money the NFL is really making. But that's it. I guess that's it for that topic. So now I want to open it up to some questions here. Yeah, I wish, Chef. You send me a check any day. I'll open it up to some questions here to kind of wrap up today's show. About 7-8 minutes here. We'll wrap it up. Any questions, any comments about today's topics? Any questions for future shows? Anything that you guys would like to see and talk about, just let me know. You can always email us, info@rockdownpodcastnetwork.com. Of course, you can get all of your news and more in podcast, including the All Grit Pod at sportspider.com. That is sport, SPYDER.com. Great partner. I'm glad that they are part of Rockdown Podcast Network and helping us as a sponsor. We do have tons of affiliate links and stuff like that we don't use a whole lot. We'll start integrating that stuff a little bit more. I've taught a few people on this and how to use it and how to implement it, so I'm glad to see that other people are. But affiliate links help support the channel, for things that you guys are going to purchase anyway. So if it can help support us, we'll gladly share, some affiliate links. By no means do you have to purchase anything, but if you're going to purchase a jersey, you might as well use an affiliate link that helps out a local person, right? It helps your local podcast continue to grow and develop and bring more people in. That's what we're all about here. Tonight, we have the Off the Cuff podcast Thursday night, 7 p.m. And again, since I couldn't do it on Monday night, we're going to be doing our first mini helmet giveaway. This is not one of the helmets, but this is what, the size or whatever, just so we're all clear. Mini helmets. This is Billy Sims, but I'll be giving away some mini helmets between now and the end of the season, every 500 subscribers. So if you guys want to unlock it, you just got to like, share, and subscribe to the channel and share. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is just share it. Get more Lions fans in, because every 500, we're going to do a random pick for somebody that's in a live stream. So if you're in a live stream, we're going to do a random pick, and you're just going to get a helmet. You obviously have to give us your address. We'll communicate, through email or something. But that's our goal, man. We've already invested in all these helmets for the entire season. So they're going to be signed either Chris Spielman or Penei Sewell, They'll all have certificate of authenticity. I think it's pretty cool, man, having the Chris Spielman one. That's going to be awesome. I can't wait to pick them all up next week. I was going to pick them up a couple of weeks ago, but on my way to Cleveland, I'll pick them up this time. John Doe says we still have $30 million in cap space this season. It's use it or lose it, or it doesn't carry over. Any one-year free agent deals on the horizon. So I don't know where you're getting use it or lose it from. The Lions can designate all of that to roll over. They just have to let the league know what they want to roll over. But let's take a look at the Lions salary cap now that they have all the rookies signed. Cap space, according to Spotrac, over the cap, 30 poor. They're definitely not poor. $34.586 million is what they have, and all the rookies are signed. It's a good number to have, man. Brad Holmes, he's doing mysterious things working this salary cap the way that he has. So I know that they can roll it over. They just have to spend all but 10% of it, I think, every year, or roll all but 10% of it every year. Jay Mommy says probably use it on players they re-sign. So that's what I'm expecting for next season. I'm expecting that next season that, the Lions are going to roll a large majority of this money over. Now they've obviously they have a big piggy bank, right? So they're going to keep this money for emergency purposes. After 53-man cuts happen, I would not be surprised if the Lions can go out and find somebody that can help make this team better. And then the deadline. So by the trade deadline, I think that we'll have our answer. Do we have injuries to address? Is there anybody that we can get, that can help make this team better? Obviously, picking on the teams that aren't doing so well. I think that's where the money would be spent. But I think that, to J Mommy's point, I think a lot of this will get rolled over to next season. We have a Lee McNeil to sign. We have Aiden Hutchinson that's more than likely going to get a deal next year, potentially. He's not due anything. Still has up to 2 more years under contract. And he's made pretty good money. We'll see. We'll see where that goes. I think that's really going to depend on how good of a season that he has. Obviously, he's played pretty well to this point. Does it make sense to sign him next year? I don't have an answer for that. I think it has to line up for their roster roulette, like I like to call it. If it makes sense, it makes sense. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I think that's the one thing that maybe we don't understand fully is what makes sense to their bottom line and how they're going to get contracts done. So we'll see what happens there. What else we have in here? So Thomas Donner says, I'm going to point out a great problem we are going to have. We will be cutting players that will start for other teams. When was the last time we could ever say that? It's something we've been talking about a lot here. This is going to be a tough year. It's going to be a tough year for cuts because, like I said just 2 days ago, I think, I have a hard time getting rid of, 30 guys in the 90-man roster. It's really tough to settle on your top 60, let alone top 53. And to your point, that is a great problem to have because you have a very slim window to get these guys signed on the practice squad. And even then, I think you can only hold or secure 4 of those positions. They can't get plucked off your team. You can protect them. But outside of that, those guys are all going to be up, to be able to be signed away from other teams. The condition being the other teams have to sign them to their immediate roster. It's a great point, man. It really is. And it's happening. It started last year, but this year I think we're going to see it even more, that it's going to be tough to get down to 53. What else you guys have? We'll be ending the show here in just a few more minutes. We'll wind back and see if there's any questions I missed. There's a lot of action today. I had a lot of topics to cover, but we'll get more into chat tomorrow. Joseph Ostin, I think you're talking about that reporter on Seth Walder. Yeah, he did zero research, man. Zero research. Oh, there we go. Joseph Olsen said Tanner Ingstrand. He's the guy that is training under Ben Johnson. The name that I couldn't pull together today. So, yeah, Tanner Ingstrand training under Ben Johnson to relieve Ben Johnson in the ultimate case that he does move on to a head coaching position next season. I don't think that our offense is going to fall off at all. Not one bit. All right, so for today's topics, we covered Decker speaks on Dan Campbell and how impactful that day one introductory press conference was so impactful to the Lions' future and how Dan Campbell has stuck by everything that he has said. Seth Walder apparently didn't do any research, according to people in the chat today. Doesn't have a clue as to why Jared Goff's contract makes so much sense. And the fact that, again, to another chat point today, the Lions got it done in time. They got it done before this explosion of quarterback salaries that, has already started. The fact that they got the contract done for less than Joe Burrow was a credit in and of itself, because now it's only going to grow. Third topic we covered today, did the Lions gift James Turner to the Packers after stealing Jake Bates and signing him away from the UFL? Possibly. There's some rumors and talk that the Packers are trying to target James Turner now that the Lions have released him. Fourth topic, did the Lions make a mistake in letting Adrien Martinez go? He's played very well in the UFL level. Again, according to the chat, not a great completion percentage, but he had a really good season. Different type of offense, different style of football in the UFL. I mean, it's still football, but it's a different style of offense that they're running. They're doing things a little bit differently there, but overall, I think that, it's similar. My answer to this is maybe not. I think that the Lions are just fine with their backups right now. Is Adrien better than Nate Sudfeld athletically? Absolutely. Is he better mentally? I don't have that answer. I would assume not. I think that Sudfeld has been great for Jared Goff when he's been part of the team. Last topic of the day, the NFL is obviously in hot water with the NFL Sunday Ticket lawsuit. Could they file bankruptcy? If they are deemed liable and damages are awarded, it could exceed $21 billion. How will that hamper the NFL moving forward? Will they have to file bankruptcy to move on or not? Could that impact our football on Sundays? Could it end the NFL? I don't know. I don't have the answer. I hope it doesn't. So shout out to everybody in the chat this morning. You guys have been great. Thank you for joining the Rise and Grind Morning Show. We'll be back at 7 p.m. tonight for Off the Cuff Podcast. And then tomorrow morning for Rise and Grind at 8 a.m. Not sure what we're going to talk about tonight, but I'm sure it's going to be interesting. We'll see you guys later. Take care. Go on Pride. Go Detroit Lions. Have a good day. Bye-bye.